Welcome to Relics of Ore, the show about Guild Wars, Guild Wars 2. It's pretty much just Guild Wars 2 right now. And the Guild Wars 2 community. And this week, we have a pretty awesome show lined up. We're going to be talking a lot about Dragon Bash, as well as some crazy speculation. And, with special guest Indo, we're going to actually have some information for you on WvW, how that works, and sort of the general philosophy of World versus World and what's going on with it right now. So, joining me this week also is Evee. How are you doing this week, Evee?
I'm doing okay. I'm for what's the word I'm looking for? I'm being shadowed by Indo and his many fans. So I apologize if I'm a little heartbroken.
Aw, overshadowed. It's okay. I think we're all. I think Indo is gonna be. People are gonna show up, and and everyone from Indo's groups is gonna be like, wait, they're talking about PvE. What is this? There's a whole nother game to Guild Wars 2. And so our special guest is Indo. How are you doing this week, Indo?
Excellent. Thanks for having me.
Yeah,
on the show.
We're excited to have you. Let's get right down to it, actually. Kate and Christian are out of town this week, so if you were expecting to see them, they will probably be back like next week or sometime in the future. And so, yeah, let's move straight into some World versus World, because I know the core group of Relics of Ore has not played, or at least as far as I know, hasn't played a lot of World versus World. So, just give us a high-level overview of what World versus World is like at Tier 1, Indo.
I think overall Tier 1 is just, you have a lot of 24/7 action throughout all the BLs. Whereas in the lower tiers you'll have a lot of downtime where multiple servers, or maybe even all three, will go outmanned at times. Whereas in Tier 1, it's pretty much a guarantee that whatever BL you zone into, there will be, large fights going on somewhere.
So how do those fights normally sort of break up? Do you actually get everyone on your team and just zerg around in a big circle, or how do you what's the general philosophy for organizing a World versus World fight?
It really depends, I think, on the server that you play on. Sanctum of Rall specifically has a lot of World v World oriented guilds that like to run as guilds, and we have a community TS where all the guilds are running separately in different channels, but they have CComs on in the background, so they're all talking to each other, but at the same time they're in independent channels. So for SOR particularly, you'll have 20 to 30 man guild groups all running independently, but they will converge on like a target if we're gonna siege something, or something needs to be defended, or there is another 80-man zerg that needs to be broken up and it can't be done by the 30-man alone. So they'll coordinate their attacks together, or just kind of make sure whatever strategy that they're gonna put forth on things that they may take, they're gonna coordinate as well. In some of the lower tiers, just from last week, we did only play it a couple days, my particular guild, but I noticed in the lower tiers there's a lot more zerging, or, where everyone's running in one big ball, and there's less, split hits, or, multiple prong hits. We'll even split hit like the same server between 4 BLs just because we can coordinate it, so it really forces that opposing server to be on their game.
So one thing that is interesting that we've looked at is what generally is your philosophy during server resets for those, when you're basically starting with everyone at neutral?
Well, what we try to do anyways, is we really try to organize and spread out the World v World oriented guilds between the 4 BLs. So on reset, typically, and we do it every week, about an hour and a half before reset, all of the Sanctum of Rall community gets together, whether they're in a World v World guild or not, whether they're guild leader or not, whether they're commander or not, and we all sit down in one channel and we just talk about the previous week, and then we organize for the coming week. So basically we'll put each of the major World v World guilds into a separate BL, so they're kind of the spine of that BL, so they can organize the militia, and then we just make sure we have a balanced reset. just to put
what is a BL?
a Borderland.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've spent a lot of time in World versus World, apparently.
Yeah, it's a
So,
Borderlands. So, if it's really night and day, I guess you could say that the competitiveness of Tier 1 as opposed to, the tiers below, it's really, really night and day, which, ANET came up with their new Glyco system where it's a lot of more randomness. It's really, really unfair to the lower tiered servers if they get put up against a Tier 1 server. It's just, it really, you can't even compete. And I can really see how it wouldn't be fun for those lower tier servers.
I do remember one time Northern Shiver Peaks. We met a guild transferred to I think like Kainang or something that was like a super serious server, super serious group. They tore us to shreds so bad. We were just like, no one on Northern Shiver Peaks was going into World versus World because we're like, we can't do anything. We show up and they kill us as we walk out the gate. So I can understand why that might be something that people would find scary. How has the changes that ArenaNets have been doing, not only with Glyco, but also with the previous updates, such as the new skill system and the new long-term, basically, leveling up in WvW, how has that affected the actual fights?
I mean, that hasn't affected the fights too much per se, but I think in that sense it's the same. But I think it's gets more people interested in World v World and keeps them there just because there's that grind or that reward factor to it individually.
So that doesn't really affect how team strategy or anything at this point for you guys, or would you even tell us if it did?
Wait, can you repeat that question?
Has that long-term resource affected strategy in any way? How you approach World versus World? Like, do you say these people get this set of abilities and these people get this set of abilities? Go.
I think at a guild level, I think it does. There's certain guilds that will spec out different individuals to do different things. Like the Blister or the AC or the extra HP or whatever it may be. But as a server, I don't think it's affected. The server meta too much.
Oh, okay. Interesting. How much... So with that, let's see what other questions we've written. Actually, with the server meta, what's the general... So you have groups running around siege equipment. Do you guys actually have places where you're like, we always put trebuchets here and attack from here? Or how does that... What sorts of siege do you guys normally use? Do you use everything, or...
We use pretty much everything. It really depends on the situation. Defensively, what we've done as a server is we've actually put all our defensive siege locations on a timer. So you can actually go and see when the siege is about to expire. So anyone can go and kind of re-click it or refresh it, I guess you could say, so that the siege stays going. So as a server, we've put a lot of effort into training our militia so that it stays interesting for them. Because yes, the World v World guilds will always have fun. They'll always, love to PvP. But a separate aspect of it is to get more of the community, more of the, the PvE players involved in World v World, and not only just get them involved, but make it fun for them. So for that, SOR in particular, they really spend a lot of time with workshops. At least every week we have at least 4 workshops for new commanders, new World v World players, novice World v World players, intermediate World v World players, and then just players at the high level who just want to get better. So we really make an effort, from the World v World guilds to get more of the militia involved, and it's a huge part of sustaining a good, strong World v World server.
How does the with the sustaining, one of the big things for sustaining control is generally having that 24-hour coverage. How do you guys go about doing that? Do you have EU guilds and that sort of thing that have actually moved onto the NA servers, or?
Yeah, T1 particularly has, and I consider T1, SOR, JQ, BG. All 3 T1 servers have 1 Euro guild each. I think BG has 2. JQ has 1 now, and SOR has 1. But what you'll find is that the servers that are able to communicate between the BLs, effectively, will be able to hop that group around. So you'll have scouts everywhere, and then you'll have that main force of the Euro guys just bouncing between the 4 BLs, defending stuff or taking stuff as those windows arise. But when you go against the lower tiered servers, that may have equivalent or greater Euro coverage, but they aren't used to the map hopping, the map hopping meta. You can really see it because they're just stuck in one BL, whereas our guys in Tier 1 will just have hopped all 4 maps, while that same group is, stuck in that one BL, so they're just sitting there. And that goes for all the time zones, because no one has, except for NA Prime, 8 p.m., 7 p.m. EST to like 12 midnight till 1. None of the servers have full coverage in all the BLs, but what you'll find is that the more organized servers will be able to map up their forces effectively.
So when you are covering that and server hopping, what sorts of with the scouts, how are you determining what to hit and what not to hit? What sort of is guiding philosophy there?
It really depends. I mean, you're looking for a window. I mean, sometimes what we'll do is we'll pretend to hit, say, BG has Garrison in their home BL and Bay in SOR BL. We'll pretend to hit, SR BL hard with the full force. We'll pull like 40 players back while 40 players are still sieging it, and we'll port those 40 players to BGBL, and we'll hit BGBL Garrison at the same time. So you got to really play a lot of, kind of strategic, maneuvers to effectively split your force to take stuff, especially in the time zones where not every BL is queued. And that really comes down to coordination that you have within your server.
Speaking of queues, how does that affect the coordination for the for the Tier 1 servers? Yeah.
During NA Prime, I mean, no one will be bouncing. There will be no map hopping. All 4 maps will be queued for all 3 servers, and that's pretty much a guarantee. So you're just stuck in your borderland for those 4 or 5 hours during NA Prime. But any of the other hours, that's when you got to really kind of look at World v World, not from a 1 borderland perspective, but from a 4 borderland perspective.
So So do you find that all the maps are equally important, or do you also tend to try and focus on the Eternal Battlegrounds, the center one?
My particular guild, actually, we focus on the borderlands. We find that, and I think it goes for most servers. I think most servers find that most of the, just the militia, the pure militia, they tend to, kind of gravitate towards EB, where more of the organized forces kind of gravitate towards the borderlands.
Interesting. Also,
And
on the
it's harder to,
okay.
it's harder to queue in. If you have a guild of 30, 35, it's just harder to queue into EB 35 players, where it's easier to do it in the borderlands. So I think both have kind of an impact on the decision that organized guilds make and where they go.
On the topic of queues as well, what sort of effect have you seen with the removal of the jumping puzzle from Eternal Battlegrounds?
That was a huge thing. You find less players just taking up spots. So the queue for EB before used to be outrageous at times, just because it is the biggest BL, and as I said, most of the militia gravitate towards it. But now that they go in and out right away, it keeps that BL flowing. So even on SOR, which is a really heavy NA Prime server, I'd say the longest time you'd ever have a queue for EB is maybe 30, 35 minutes. 45 on reset night.
One thing that is interesting is that they do put PvE, like the PvE daily and the PvE monthly, relate to World versus World. Do you find that that's actually helpful to get the militia motivated to go into World versus World, or is that actually less helpful?
I don't think it has too much of an impact. I think it just basically allows World v Worlders to complete the daily or the monthly in World v World, and the PvEers to complete the daily in PvE. Really, I feel like there's a really big concrete wall between the 2 groups of individuals, whereas one side does not like to do the other doesn't like to do, World v World, and that is where I feel ANET should work stronger to kind of merge the 2 together, so that there is a potential interest from both sides to do one or the other. Because right now the split is so strong that it really comes down to the individual communities to kind of create interest in the opposing thing. A lot of SORs, World v Worlders, were kind of quote unquote ex-PvEers, and that just came out of slowly pulling these guys out of PvE, showing them how much fun organized World v World can be, and then keeping them interested. And now you could say that the majority of SOR's population is heavy World v World and less PvE, even though at inception I'd say it was a heavy PvE server, and less World v World. Now it's really, known for being a very, very, heavy side World v World community.
What sorts of things would you, playing armchair developer really quick, what sorts of things would you maybe think, having played a lot of WvW, would draw ANET could do to sort of facilitate that move from PvE nub, like Relics of War is, to more of a world versus world centric guild, or just a guild that's able to go into world versus world and acquit themselves well?
I think honestly, and I think they're heading in the right direction. If they were able to bring the group sizes down, where you didn't need at times to Zerg ball up 80 people or 60 people or 50 people, and you could create goals and things that a group of 10 people or 15 people can accomplish on their own on a regular basis throughout all the time zones. I think that would encourage more of the smaller guilds, because most of your PvE guilds tend to be smaller, more of the smaller guilds to come out and do more World v World. Right now, to effectively battle in a tier 1 environment, you have to have at least a guild of 20, I'd say, ideally 25 of the right class comps to really compete, and then that 25 can take 50, maybe 60 people, but a group of 5 to 15 to maybe 20 of a PvE guild is very difficult for them to do anything on their own, at that the competitiveness that and get the performance that they'd like. If ANET figured out a way to break up the Zergs, and they were already talking about that, I think you'll find a lot more people getting interested in World v World, because even for a World v World guild, it's not fun to Zerg. It's not fun to fight Zerg v Zerg too much. You're kind of looking for the challenge of smaller group action. It increases the ability of the class synergies. You can use them more in a smaller scale fight than you can in an 80-man fight. In an 80-man fight, you're just laying down AoE. There's some positioning advantage that you can use, but at the end of the day, you're not using the combo fields or the breakers or anything like that effectively as you would do in like a 20v20. So if they can figure out a way to make it, a 15 man can get out there and do some damage, I think they'll find a lot more PvEers getting involved.
Do you think that might be a side effect of the map size? Or...
Yeah, definitely. The map sizes are too small, without question. I mean, I can move my entire Zerg, my entire group, whatever, from one side to the other in 60 seconds or less. That's just...
How do you do that?
Just between porting, keeping up speeds, it's key. But if you ever played Dark Age of Camelot, those maps are humongous. Unless that realm had the ports up, there's no way that you'd be able to respond in 60 seconds. You'd have to really, plan ahead or have good scouting to get there in time. So if they made the maps a lot bigger, I think they'd decrease Zerging by a good amount.
You seem like you have an opinion on that, Evie. What's up? You're shaking your head, smiling.
Oh, I'm just wondering how exactly they would go about actually trying to break up Zergs, because it's such a prevalent thing right now. It's just how in the world do they do it?
Yeah. Well, I think Indo's got something with map size, but I mean, with them currently at max size, apparently they're going to have to do some pretty significant restructuring of their code in order to actually increase the size of the maps, apparently. So,
I mean, they've said that map size is literally their limit right now.
Which is
interesting.
Yeah, that is interesting. I wonder how you would maybe make really empty maps, but have keeps and airships between them, so you'd have these chunks of art assets in sections, and then you'd have to fly airships between them.
The other thing they could do is, I'm an old school Dark Age player, is before they introduce, TOA and some of the armor and items in there, most of the buffs, or heals that a group would have would be group only. So right now, if they did that, where say they made the group size 15 or 20, whatever, call it a warband if you'd like, where all your buffs, only affect people in your warband, that warband size was capped at 20, then you'd have groups of 20 running around. You know, everyone would get
Ah,
into a warband since, you know, those buffs would only affect your warband, and that number is 15 or 20, whatever you want to call it. And then instead of having groups of, you know, 80 running around where buffs affect everybody, you know, randomly, completely, it prioritizes your warband, and then you'll have a lot more smaller groups running around. So that's another thing that they could artificially do to encourage smaller man, you know, fighting. And I think it's a simple thing to do. I mean, they have no warband UI at all right now, or you know, whatever you want to call it, raid UI. But if they did something like that, I can guarantee you, overnight, you'll have a bunch of 20 mans running around instead of, you know, 60 or 70 mans running around.
no, that'd be interesting. I do know that they are working on, from what I've seen in the forums and Reddit and all sorts of like random side scuttlebutt places, they are apparently working on creating raid content in Guild Wars 2. And so there is a high probability that we will see a raid interface of some kind, or a warband. I like the warband concept. That's good char name there. I'd like to see that in Guild Wars, you know. Warband of maybe like 20 or 12 or something. Go back to your classic Guild Wars elite mission group of 12 size.
I mean, whatever the number they pick, if they stick with it, you're basically, you know, breaking down your group to that. Right now it's 5, but you really can't do much. If you made it 10, 15, I think 15 is a good number, maybe even 20, and made that the number, you know, you'd have a lot of smaller groups running around, and that actually is more fun, in my opinion, than doing the whole 80v80. You know, just doing 20v20s all over the place. It's a really good time.
Nice. So earlier you talked a little bit about comps, team comps in World versus World. What sorts of professions just should you never bring into World versus World ever? Just don't help.
I won't say never, I guess, because I mean every class can be fun, and fun is a huge aspect of the game. But if you wanted to say which classes are least effective with the current World v World meta, I'd say it's Rangers at the top. Then Thieves probably. Although Thieves do, you know, kind of, if it's a, you know, properly built thief, you know, with the right specs, it could be effective. Engineers, you know, they need a lot of help. The problem with the current game is that there are certain classes right now that just do everything better than all the other ones. So if you're looking for a specific thing brought to the table, an NG can bring something, but guess what? A Necro can do it better. If you want to bring, you know, blinds to the table, there's a certain class that can bring it, but there's another class that can do it better. Heals, there's a certain class that can bring it, but there's another class that can do it better. You can break the entire game down and just run Guardians, Warriors, Elementalists, Necros, and a few Mesmers, and there's all you ever need to beat anything on the map that anyone can ever throw at you. So I mean, that is not anyone's fault. That's an ANET development class problem. I mean, they really should devote these classes to, you know, be specific and strong in certain areas. When you have, you know, a class is meant for something, but there's another class that does it better, it automatically makes that, you know, the former class that much more appealing to bring to the table over the latter. And that's not any player's fault, really. It's just the way the class is built. So if I had to put it in order, I mean, and there's no bad classes. I mean, there's great players out there that make good classes, you know, better. But at the end of the day, you know, Rangers, Thieves, and NGs need help, in my opinion, so that they can bring something to the group table that is different than another class is already doing better.
Excuse me.
So what you're telling me is that my PvE thief is also useless in World v World.
Yeah, to an extent. I'm sorry to say it to you. But don't get me wrong, like small man, if you're, then this brings it right back down again. If you're doing small man, 5v5, 10v10, 15v15, 20v20, all these classes come back into play again. It's just when you break it up and throw it out there to like a 30v whatever or 40v whatever, or go it up the full BL size of 80v80, that's when all these classes lose their effectiveness because other classes take over and do their job better. But when you bring it down to 20 players, I think every class serves a role and can serve a role, but it's just when you know, lift off that 20-player cap, you know, fill it with Guardians, Warriors, Elementalists, Necros, and Mesmers. That's all you need. I hate to say it, but it's true.
I find that really interesting that you include warriors in that, because in structured PvP, warriors are apparently like, you don't bring them ever if you want to win. What do you do with warriors in World versus World that's so different than like in structured PvP?
I mean, the biggest thing is damage mitigation. The CC that a warrior has is pretty powerful. When you're running hammer warriors, multiple hammer warriors, you're really just keeping that enemy knocked down, knocked away. They're just breaking them up so that they can't be doing damage to you. So they're CCing them, crowd control, old term, and they're mitigating damage that your group is getting in return. It is very, very strong. Hammer warriors are quite simply, you cannot not have them. They're amazing to bring to the table. You have to have them in any group, any serious World v World group. Same with the Guardians. The Guardians are actually probably the most, the OP class in the game, if you want to call it that. They can do
So
everything, and they can
true.
do it well. It's an amazing class. There's Guardians, Warriors, and Elementalists. There's no such thing as there's too many. And sadly, I don't think any PvP game should be that way. But with the way that the current meta is, it's just the truth. There can never be too many Guardians. There can never be too many Warriors. There can never be too many Elementalists. If you really wanted to, you could run, if in a BL of 80, you could say run 65 of those three classes, 5 Necros, or maybe even 10 Necros, 5 Mesmers, and you're good to go. It really kind of leaves the NG, the Thief, and the Ranger out in the wind. And it's a real damn shame because those classes do have a lot of potential if they kind of fix them up a little bit, give them some added benefit here and there.
Now, we all understand that Guardians, pretty much the way you play that is you get a Stairmaster, you stick your keyboard on it, and then you walk away from the computer, and it'll win the game for you. We understand that about Guardians. Being a Necro, do they use Flesh Golem in WvW for its like awesome charge, or is it pretty much just go Plague Form and blind everyone?
Pretty much Plague Form and blind everyone. The only problem with the Flesh Golem, and it can be useful, I mean, because it has no limit to the people that it knocks down. If you notice, a lot of times, unless you're getting a good hit in from the side or the back, you get that Flesh Golem will get CC'd. But Plague is probably one of the most overpowered abilities in the game when it comes to World v World, so it's very hard to give that up.
Cool. What class do you play in World versus World?
Yeah, I play Necro.
Yeah! Represent.
It used to be probably, I think, originally not many people used to play it, but now people are realizing how powerful of a class it is. So you see a lot more Necros in Tier 1.
I think we're finally getting the concept of the Necro meta is finally, I think, existing again.
I mean, the problem is, originally, people tried to look at Necro as a DPS class. The Necro really isn't a DPS class, it's a support class. And it's probably one of the more powerful support classes out there. Not in heals, but in the terms of, conditions, condition removals, CCs, fears, chills. I mean, it's a very, very powerful class on, a lot of their abilities are on short cooldowns. I mean, the staff line alone brings the type of utility that other classes have on their utility line. So it's really a strong class that, a lot of people originally didn't realize how strong it was because they tried to look at it as a DPS class, not a support class.
Yeah, it's the same thing in structured PvP. You're seeing a lot more Necros come out because that metas have developed to the point where people actually know what they're doing.
Interesting. And what's sad is when Guild Wars 1, I was a Minion Master Necro, and I loved it, and it was fantastic, and I played it for 5 years as a Minion Master Necro. And I'm really sad that the minions are not more functional in the game. I'm assuming that they're just absolutely terrible in World versus World, like completely useless.
Yeah, in the current meta they are. Like I said, if you're able to bring your group size down to 15 to 20, I think you'd see a lot more builds and classes that would become useful. Right now in the current meta, it's just hard to bring a Minion Mancer into World v World. But if you're running like a group of 15 to 20, it could play a role in certain situations, absolutely. It's just once you take off that cap of 20 players, there's very limited specs that even other classes can go. I mean, in World v World, large scale World v World, Necro has maybe 2 specs. Guardian has the most of any class. They can build their Guardian 4 or 5 different ways and still be very, very effective. Warriors have 2. Elementalists have maybe 2, maybe 3, I guess you could say. Mesmers have 1 or 2. I mean, NGs and Thieves and Rangers also have, a couple here or there, but they're just not as effective as the other, 5 classes. So, but if you cut that cap down, if they create a raid party of 20, or a warband party of 20, whatever you want to call it, and make it so that your buffs only affect those 20, it creates a lot more, creativity, a lot more ability for all the classes to perform and perform very, very well.
Cool. Well, let's see. We're 30 minutes into the show, so I'm gonna actually shift us over to our PVE discussion. But I hope we can keep getting you on the show at least every once in a while, and sort of continue to expand the information that we can learn about World versus World. Specs, classes, that sort of thing. I really look forward to having you on so that we can. Oh snap! They don't want us to talk about PVE, but I'm sorry. That's like what Relics of War does. Come on, you guys have to be doing the Dragon Bash. Have you done anything with the Dragon Bash, Indo?
I did that the betting thing. I lost a lot of gold.
Who did you bet on?
Really?
Yeah.
I
They
got
just-
10
they
gold
They
doing that.
suckered my gold out of me. Those ANET guys. Bet a lot on Madi. Madi just sucked.
Oh no, not Madi. It's all about
Yeah.
Meep. Meep is where it's
Meep.
at. Evie, who did you bet on?
Meep.
It's true. He rocks. Meep is amazing. He is the most reliable white Moa I have ever seen. Meep's the white Moa, right? Or is he green?
I don't know, but that's pretty much the only thing I did for the Dragon Bash. We're not. You won't find a lot of PvEers on our server, but it's a great World v World server. You know that you find a little bit of PvE, just enough to get what you need out of it.
Nice. So Evie, what have you done as far as World versus World, or not? Forget World versus World. Yes, that is a thing. What have you done as far as PVE Dragon Bash is concerned?
Before we get into that, I actually have a question for Endo.
Oh, okay, go for it.
It's very important. Being that you play mainly World v World, how would you feel if ArenaNet tried to implement the festivals like Winter's Day, Halloween, Dragon Bash, whatnot into World v World?
And how would you suggest that they do that? What do you think that they could do?
With dragon coffers coming off of players, with the loot bags, having extra mobs as mercenaries for certain places, just general aesthetic, and just a few mechanics here and there.
I mean, I think that'd be cool. One thing I did like is, if you remember during the Halloween one, where they turned, all the Doliacs into something else, and all the Rams turned into like flame pumpkin things and stuff like that. I thought that was a really good and cool way to integrate, the PvE event into World v World, which actually I feel got a lot more of the World v World crowd interested into the PvE. So you actually found a lot of the World v Worlders coming out to do that jumping thing, the tower jumping puzzle thing. So I thought in that aspect, it was a great way to get more of the World v Worlders involved into the PvE event. But besides that event, I don't think they did a really good job of kind of integrating the two together. I don't know how you could get more PvEers into World v World because of an event, but because of the way that they did that Halloween event specifically, they definitely got a lot of the World v Worlders into PvE.
That is an interesting thing. Is once you go super serious PvP or WvW or Tri-World Combat, as I like to call it, there's probably not much time to actually PvE, I would assume.
Yeah, probably not much time, but there's also the pace of action in World v World is very fast paced. So once you're playing at a very high level like that, where everything happens almost instantly sometimes, and then you go into PvE, it's a lot more laid back, it's a lot more relaxed. So you'll find people do it just to grind for some gold, but I think most people that enjoy World v World kind of enjoy the fast pace of it. It's really good in the sense that you don't know what's going to happen next. You're kind of challenging yourself in different ways every single day against different opponents. Now that they added a little bit of a grind to it with the ranks, people are getting some type of individual completion and achievement out of it. So a lot more people are into it. I think if they were able to make the rewards, and they're kind of on the right track there, just as appealing as the PvE rewards, I think you'd find a lot more, integration between the two sides and a lot less of a wall. Because right now, I think the wall is still there, where
Yeah.
PvEers are hardcore PvEers. They don't really like World v World. The World v Worlders are hardcore World v Worlders, and they don't really like PvE. SPVP is kind of in the air. It has its own little niche crowd. It's not as big as they liked. What they really should do is just kind of concentrate on integrating and developing the World v World and the PvE together and breaking down that wall. And I think they'd have a very long, sustainable game. It just looking at what's coming up in the market and what they potentially could have and what they already have to an extent. GW2 would have some strong staying power against the competition in the coming years and months, I think.
Cool. Well, I'm gonna keep bashing my head against the PvE at this point, but have either of you tried the Dragon Ball yet? I know that when we did the show last week, they had just released like everything. So Dragon Ball, Evie.
I went in there and literally everyone on my team was AFK, and I was just like, nope, not
Really?
nope.
Seriously, everyone. Now, for anyone watching that hasn't watched the previous show or has not seen Dragon Ball, it's essentially a rework of the Dragon Arena from Guild Wars 1. And if your team is not AFK, which is a huge problem with it, it's actually pretty fun because you've got some jump pads and you've got some plates that shoot you across like gaps and that sort of thing. And if you're clever and quick, you can actually move through it rather quickly, kill the other players, and use those plates to send you flying in weird directions. Because the plates will send you in whatever direction you go and you run onto them in. So a lot of people just run straight onto the plates. But if you can sidestep onto the plate, it'll shoot you sideways, and then the enemy will go and end up in front. That's chasing you will end up in front of you, and then you kill them. It's pretty fantastic. It's actually pretty fun. So I actually really like the Dragon Ball, or Dragon Arena as it could be called. I think that it's an interesting sort of PvE PvP thing because it does put everyone on the same level. What have you been doing of late, Evie, in PvE?
Just trying to farm projections because that's a thing. Makes decent amount of money. So that's literally all I've been doing all week.
Have you gotten a Jade weapon skin?
I've opened, let's see, I have a counter on Notepad because I'm obsessive with this. 3,422 coffers. No ticket.
Indo, have you seen any coffers in WvW?
Yeah, I usually sell them once I get them.
Yeah.
I haven't really found the what's in them actually.
So if you open up, you'll get dragon candy. Or Zeit Taffy, I believe, which if you eat it, it gives you like a 10-second speed buff. It's part of the PvE achievement. It will also possibly give you fireworks, a mini Risen Knight from Ore, hollow Risen Knight, so a little mini pet, and possibly a ticket that lets you exchange it for a Jade Dragon weapon skin.
Oh, okay.
The drop rate on it is abysmal. That's one of the big things that PvEers have been talking about a lot in Guild Wars 2, is the fact that drop rates for these unique weapon skins from events are abysmal. It's literally 0.07% chance to get it. It's 0.007% chance to get it from a coffer.
The coffers drop a lot in World v World, though. I mean, every kill or two, you'll get one coffer. I think I've easily sold almost 2,000, 2,500 coffers just from World v World.
Yeah.
It's just, I think they're very high drop rate.
Yeah, that's the thing, is that there's a ton of them out there, but even still, like, because every time you open it, it's a 0.007% chance. Opening 3,000 of them doesn't affect your chances at all. It just means that you've rolled 3,000 times and not gotten that number.
Right.
It's kind of weird because one of the big things with Guild Wars 1 and Guild Wars 2 specifically was supposed to be that, you know, you go and you get the end game is getting the skins that you want in PvE, and it's kind of impossible. What do you think about that, Evie?
I'm beyond frustrated with it to the point that I'm probably going to give up soon. Not gonna lie.
Yeah, I know. I've already given up on getting the Jade ticket. I'd love to get the shield. It's an awesome dragon crawling up a golden dome. It looks fantastic, but I'm never gonna see it. even though I play regularly, I do a show on Guild Wars 2, I'm never going to get that piece of equipment because of RNG. So, awesome. Good work, ArenaNet. There's my rant for the week. One of the interesting things is they do have a lot of really grindy achievements, which is kind of lame. Which we're kind of ranting about it. There is actually some good stuff in the actual PvE content, though. I mean, actually hunting the holograms can be pretty entertaining. And I kind of enjoy having all those different kinds of... Basically, you have all the dragon minions from PvE. How much... You've done, what, 15% of world completion, Indo?
Around there, 15, 20, something like that. Not much.
Any of the personal story?
No. What's personal story?
If I said the word Primordius, what would that mean to you?
I have no idea.
Okay, so there's a bunch of dragons. They're attacking Tyria. And one of the things that's happening is that the dragon minions are... They basically, for the Dragon Bash, they created all these holographic projectors, and dragon minions pop up. And you beat the living stun out of them, and you get Zytaffy, you get the coffers, you can get some holographic wing back pieces that I managed to get to drop. Yes.
I see.
And some
Full disclosure, I leveled
stuff.
my tune in Stone Mist back in the day.
I would assume that if you have 15% world completion, that's because you never went beyond like a level 10 area.
Yeah, I think I hit level 15 or something like that. But Stone Mist used to give really, really high defense tick EXP. So I used to just sit in Stone Mist for a couple, 2-3 days and level my tune to 80.
Nice. That seems like a, man, I should try that. Or just craft my way to 80, because that takes like 4 hours, I think. So, apparently the people watching think that you are terrible at PvE, Indo.
Yeah, probably.
But that's okay. I mean, if you survive in WvW, you can probably survive in PvE. So one of the interesting things that they have actually added, though, is the helms that you can get. What do you think of those helms, Evee?
Those exist?
Did you not get one this weekend?
Mine bugged out and I actually have a ticket.
Oh, that is lame. They basically, if you went to Lion's Arch, you just they basically what they did with this event is they created 4 tiers of rarity. Actually, they created helms, which all you had to do was go to Lion's Arch during the weekend, stand around for a while, look up at the sky, and you would see some fireworks go off every 2 hours, and you'd get a hat that is a skin for light, medium, and heavy armor. And so that was pretty easy to get. Then there was complete a bunch of achievements, and you'll get these shattered dragon wings that you can wear on your back, which kind of look like these crystals that are wing crystal things. They look actually pretty cool. And then they've also got then a rare chance to drop from either a coffer or from one of the holographic mobs. You can get the actual dragon wings, which are solid they're holographic dragon wings, but instead of being shattered like they are just a straight dragon wings. And those are rare drops, and they're a little bit harder to get than the shattered dragon wings. I was lucky to get one to actually drop off of some mobs, so I was quite excited about that. And then they have the weapons, which are impossible to get without the gods of chance smiling down upon you. So, all in all, Dragon Festival I thought is pretty good. They just released the first event, or the first story mission, really, for Dragon Festival, which is about 10 minutes to complete. You'll get 1 gold guaranteed from doing it. So you just have to pop into Lion's Arch, talk to Inspector Keel, right next to the statue. And yeah, you'll be able to kill some cool steampunk pirate corsairs.
Sky
Pirates, that's right. You'll be able to kill some sky pirates and get 1 gold for like 15 minutes work. So that's pretty nice. That might actually be worthwhile for WvWers if they want to, save up some money for. Do you guys use money a lot in WvW?
To buy Siege.
Okay, well there you go. See, 1 free gold for 15 minutes of PvE.
That might not be worth it.
Really, you can make more than 1 gold per 15 minutes in WvW?
Yeah, I mean, if you kill enough people, you definitely make a lot of gold. I mean, the heavy bags and just looting everything, you make a lot of gold.
So now, do you guys do you just straight sell the heavy bags, or do you open them up and sell what's inside?
Uh, Usually I open them up just because I found that you make more gold out of opening them up. But sometimes if you're too lazy, you just sell the stacks because you do get a lot of stacks. I mean, typically in a night you pick up between 150 to 200, so which is a lot of bags.
Yeah, that's it's a lot of gold. So there you go. Okay, that is definitely a different way to make money. WvW is very different than PvE. The old PvE way to make money was to farm in ore. Now pretty much it's farming dragon timers. As a dragon timer hits, you go and you complete the dragon or the you complete the event. You get your guaranteed rare for the day from each event, and then if you have another account, rinse and repeat. But and that sort of changed the meta. But one thing that it has done is it has radically changed the usage of ore and materials that come out of ore. Those are a lot harder to get your hands on now. And that stuff is getting more expensive. So what is an Inquisitor run? Is that a dungeon run? They just mentioned you can do Inquisitor runs.
I have no idea.
South Sun Cove. Okay. Yeah, they don't. Those no longer exist. Actually. Yeah, no, those were gone like a month ago. Sorry. Actually on the 28th of last month they went away. So you can't do Inquisitor runs anymore. Sorry. You did it like 2 weeks ago? Oh man, I don't know. I'll have to go see if those guys are back. That would actually be a really fast way to make money.
2 weeks ago was the 28th.
Really?
Just say
I have no sense of time. Oh wow, that was like 3 weeks ago. So there are definitely some interesting things there that Arena is planning on doing. There's actually a lot of a lot of stuff going on the forums about them reworking Ore and South Sun to provide more rewards for killing champions and actually unique rewards for champions. Evie, what do you think they might be doing with World versus or with Ore and South Sun?
10% extra chance to get a precursor from a champion. There you go.
Man, okay, I'm definitely putting on my tinfoil hat for this section. Personally, I'm thinking they're going to introduce champion tokens.
But they said they want to avoid another currency. So, laurels for champions?
That could be an interesting way to do it. So, do you guys work with laurels much in World versus World?
Yeah, I mean, you've pretty much can finish the daily now in World v World without really trying, so you get them, and then now that they have the Ascended Gear Merchant in World v World, I think more people are using them.
What sort of effect has the Ascended Gear had on World versus World?
I
Back
think
to that.
people kind of, they hit a little bit harder, survive a little bit longer. And in my opinion, longer fights are more fun than quick fights, so especially with the new World v World abilities where people can get more hit points, I think just making the fights long and drawn out makes them a lot more enjoyable for not just World v Worlders, but the general population. No one likes dying in, 5-10 seconds.
No, that is lame. Which is what champions can do in Ore. Oh my goodness, stupid. I was like, there's this champion that I used to solo on my Necro, and now he like insta-kills people when they reworked all the champions in Ore. And it's terrifying. I'm just trying to capture a skill point in Ore, and all of a sudden he comes out of the sky, sets me on fire. It's terrible. I was crying. No, I wasn't actually crying, but it was annoying. So, would you actually go back to Ore if they increase rewards or anything from that, Evie?
I didn't even do ore when it was the thing because of COF. That's what I did.
One thing they are looking to do also with Ore is to refocus it on groups working through event chains. And so creating event chains and essentially almost like a raid in WoW or anything where you follow a sequence and like you'll complete the event chain, there'll be a boss. You complete an event chain, there'll be a boss. And that's basically you clear trash, boss, clear trash, boss, clear trash, boss, all the way up to, for example, like the Temple of Balthazar. And that's kind of one of the things that they want to refocus on. Is that sort of system in PvE. Do you think that would actually encourage you to go back to Ore, Evie?
The thing with encouraging that kind of system is usually when it comes to like group content in PvE like that, it takes a fair amount of coordination to get that many people together in a guild or whatever. And if it's random, then there's the fact that they're probably not going to be very good because there's going to be no coordination, no communication. So there's a very steady line they have to ride. It's almost like playing World v World at a low level. All these people are completely uncoordinated, so they just zerg.
That's a good point. And you generally don't get super organized temple runs, and
Exactly.
that does make it more difficult. And you definitely don't get the level of investment in PvE that you do in World versus World for like keeping ore open and that sort of thing. Otherwise, you would still have guilds there just like saying, "Hey, we're keeping ore open. This is what we do." At least not on Northern Shiver Peaks, even though we're a small, low pop server too, which is part of our curse. Yeah, and that is definitely some issues with one thing that they mentioned in chat room is the fact that there is sort of your baseline exotic gear comes from the temples in ore. One thing that they're talking about is trying to add more rewards to the temples in ore, but they didn't really say much about the boss fights aside from changing the boss fights a little bit. I think one of the biggest issues we've had is that when you do the boss fight, you actually get more rewards for failing to letting the boss recapture the place, which is kind of an issue.
Mhm.
So we'll have to look and see what they're going to do with that, see how that works. They also said that they're reworking the world bosses, so dragons, that sort of thing. What do you think that they might do with reworked world bosses, Evie?
They're gonna put them in World v World to get all those PvE players in there.
Indo, how would you feel if like the Shatterer was an event in World versus World? Like all of a sudden, the Shatterer and a whole bunch of Kralkatorix minions would attack like a keep.
Absolutely not. They already have that in EB, the worm. It's the worst possible thing they could have ever done. If anything, they should take out all these mobs, these random ass mobs all over the place. Just put them in the like. I don't know the purpose that that northeast corner serves to the map. If they actually got rid of all this PV area, like the jumping puzzle, the northeast map, um, even some of the east stuff, and extended out all the structures, the maps would be even bigger now. Right now, they're just like Evie was saying, they can't go any bigger with the maps, but they're not utilizing the maps properly as is. So it really doesn't make any sense at all to put PvE mobs in a small zone that they already have. If anything, take what they have in here already and move it out, move and kind of spread out some of their existing structures, and they can at least work with the existing map since they can't make it bigger supposedly. But I hopefully they never do that. I mean, as much as we'd love to get more, PvEers involved, there's better ways to do it rather than putting a PvE mob in a World v World zone.
So you wouldn't necessarily like. What if they expanded the map as far as like removed all of that normal stuff and then just had random dragon minions attacking keeps and stuff? Or is there?
No, I don't think that makes any sense. I mean, right now, just the way that the game is structured, I mean, I don't think, any PvEers would have any interest, and I don't think any World v Worlders would have any interest in, doing that in a World v World zone. I mean, right now, you have the ability in PvE to kill your PvE mobs without players harassing you. Just imagine doing it, a high-level dragon. I'm sure they're tough, with players attacking you.
The dragons actually kind of stand there, and everyone's found like a reasonably safe spot, and you just sit there and use all of your abilities from a safe spot. It's not as much fun as it could be.
Until the Zerg of 80 players comes and wipes you.
Right, and that's the thing that could be kind of interesting if you would like wait until, or would it change the meta to where wait until a dragon's attacking the keep and then we'll come in from the other side and take it, and that would become the new meta.
It'd probably become something like that. I mean, anything that right now they just need to make sure that it stays more balanced rather than less balanced between the three servers.
Yeah.
One thing that they should work on, and I think some of the PvE players had a lot more fun with it back then, is the orbs, because it added a different element besides just killing players. You could run an orb or try to catch an orb or ninja an orb. It just adds a different element which gets more players interested who don't want to just exclusively just kill.
And that was pretty much broken by the speed hackers, though, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was, but I'm sure there's ways around that. If they really want to do it, I'm sure they could do it.
Maybe someday we'll see the orbs again. That could be interesting.
It'd be fantastic if they were able to do that. It really would. I mean, that added a great element to the game.
I'd completely forgotten about the orb functionality. Like, I see that place at the top of the map, and I'm like, there's a thing up there that we never go to or even think about on our server. Do you guys ever actually... Is there anything to do with the Orb Citadel now that it's empty?
No, just more wasted space on the map, which they need to work on. You know, that whole north side is wasted space, the northeast side of the Borderlands wasted space, the northwest with the jumping puzzles wasted space. I mean, really, they just need to get rid of all that stuff and kind of expand the structures out so it requires more travel time.
Interesting. Yeah, I get that is an interesting way to look at it as far as like jumping puzzles and stuff. I know that a lot of like on Northern Sugar Peaks we like to run in and grab like the jumping puzzles really quick because it's the fastest way to get badges on a low pop server where you don't have a Zerg running. But you know, that's us PvEers. That's what we do. We go and do jumping puzzles instead of actually fighting people. They are coming up with, speaking of more PvE, they're coming up with new fractals and rewards incoming from that. So that should be interesting. Did you guys ever run the event dungeon for Flame and Frost, Evie? Yeah, I know you ran it a few times.
It was amazing. Best dungeon they've ever made.
It was pretty fantastic. They had you jumping over stuff. Indo, did you ever see it or run it at all?
Nope. What is it exactly?
So what they had is they had a dungeon that you could go into, and it was pretty cool because what had happened is Dredge and Fire Legion Char, which Dredge are rat people. You've probably seen them in the Eternal Battlegrounds when you have to save them from the fiery minion things. Anyways, they bonded together and they went and they started a union to take everyone out. And they had this fantastic dungeon, which was essentially you'd go in and it was one of their best designed boss encounters and everything. It didn't feel like it wasn't insanely difficult, but it definitely was not easy. Groups would wipe and that sort of thing on the boss. It involved a lot of movement. Enemies would do shockwaves that you could jump over or try and dodge through, and all sorts of very cool things. I was a huge fan of the dungeon. But when the event ended at the end of 2 months ago, was that Evie? Month and a half ago, they took the dungeon was done. You had defeated the bosses, and now you can't go into the dungeon anymore because it's blowing up and set on and no longer in the world. So one thing that they're trying to do is they have these fractals for the dub people. Fractals, you go in and they basically are 3 mini dungeons that you do, and they teleport you through the mists. It's similar to how the Eternal Battlegrounds and all those Borderlands exist in the mists, but every week they sort of reset lore-wise. These fractals, you finish them to stabilize them for a little while, and then they reset, and so you go back in and you can do them multiple times, theoretically. And they're looking at taking things like the Flame and Frost dungeon and actually putting that into fractals, which is pretty exciting for us PvEers. I'm looking forward to doing that boss again. They've also said that they are going to do some historical type things where you can go in and actually see a historical event that maybe we haven't seen before in Guild Wars or Guild Wars 2. Evie, what sort of historical event from the Guild Wars 2 lore or Guild Wars lore in general, would you like to see them add as a fractal?
The Seer Mersat War.
That would actually be kind of awesome. How would you think that they'd include Spectral Agony? I mean, I guess technically they already have it. So that would make sense.
Like how the char fractal changes you to chars.
That would be kind of crazy. Floating around like a seer with all of your like feathery stuff behind and like your 6 legs and stuff. That'd be kind of cool. I approve. That is a cool idea. I like that. I was thinking that you could do things like Pawala Joko taking over Ilona, which is a pretty cool, which could be interesting, like the Fall of the Sun Spears and how they all got just murderized by this undead guy to the south. It's kind of weird that we have so many people who are watching, and I wonder how many people actually know Guild Wars 2 lore or Guild Wars lore. So when I say things like Pawala Joko, I'm super curious how many people in chat actually know who that is. Oh, we've got what Dragon Season knows. Yeah, represent Dragon Season. We love you, Dragon Season. You got our back. Polar Joko is an undead guy that in Guild Wars 1 was released, and he succeeded in taking over. He's a bad guy, and he took over a country that you saved in Guild Wars 1, and now it is just full of undead, and all the heroes that were there are now completely defeated. And I'd love to see sort of that fight, like the last fight of the Sun Spears, who are the people that stood against him until he just crushed them. I'd love to see that fight, so it would be like a progressive fight where you'd eventually probably lose, or you'd play as the undead and just massacre them. I'd actually like to see one where you actually get pushed back, and it's like at the last moment you get ported out. She's like, oh, you're gonna die, beat this boss, and then teleport out. I think that'd be kind of cool. There's a few other ones. Follow the exile of the Tengu from Kantha. Tengu are these bird people, and I'd love to see that. Either acting as the Kanthan Empire or as the Tengu escaping from the Kanthans when they were trying to kill them. I think that would be totally awesome. Also, I'd like to see the Great Destroyer fight from Guild Wars 1 come back. It wasn't a great fight, but I think in Guild Wars 2 it could be fantastic. Also, Malix. Malix should come back. Do you remember Malix, Evie? Did you ever fight Malix?
I try to forget about that fight.
That was a fantastic fight. Like, if you knew how to play it. Like, I totally had all these spirits. It was rough.
I played an Imbagon because, you know, I'm Evie. And the people I tended to play with didn't know what they were doing. So...
You're an Imbagon, so you...
Yeah.
Imbagon, for those who have... Ember, what? Imbagon was an imbalanced paragon. In Guild Wars 1, there was this class that basically was they would shout at people and make them more powerful, and you could set stuff on fire. And there was a series of shouts you could do that made your entire team extremely tough, extremely durable, move really fast, and just attack faster, and it made your party extremely powerful. And it was called the Imbagon, or Imbalanced Paragon. And it was a hilarious build that was amazing. And when you combined it with Necromancer minions, it was disturbing. But, so you were playing Imbagon, they had no clue what they were doing. What happened?
Everyone died except for me and the monk. Every single time. For like a month. And I was just like, you know what, I can't do this anymore.
Third attempt with my group of 3, we took them out. Actually, it was our second attempt, technically. Once we discovered, oh, hey, you can't put conditions on him because he just heals himself from conditions. That said, we had played together a lot, and we were pretty competent. And, you know, I couldn't bring minions because you'd just eat my minions, and it was sad. So I pretty much had to go pure spirit necro. I was a ritualist necro at that point, which was hilarious.
Wait, ritualist necro or necro ritualist?
I was a necromancer ritualist.
Okay.
Necro Rit. It was a weird build. I never went with the standard builds. My entire build was essentially Necromancer summons and then Ritualist summons.
Okay, and while Guild Wars 1 talk is amazing, we should probably talk about Guild Wars 2.
We should probably talk about Guild Wars 2. It was a fantastic... I'd love to see that fight come back, and Ritualist needs to be added to the Necromancer as a advanced class. And I do feel sorry for Indo. Indo, we will eventually induct you into, like, some PvE, and you can play, like, 1 hour per week of PvE, so you're like, oh, I know what these guys are talking about.
And you can drag us into WvW so that you can have some more sheep for your Zerg.
There we go. So I'll have to move one of my accounts over to Sanctum of Rall, it sounds like. And actually experience the wonders of WvW, Tri-World Combat. Moving on, we're going to finish up the show really quick so that Indo won't fall asleep. He's probably actually organizing the WvW right now. Or he's drinking to get through it. Are you still there, Indo? Indo's totally AFK. Nice. That's okay. Because he had his part of the show. Alright, so, Sky Pirates. What do you think, Evie?
There needs to be more Sky Pirates.
So what's happening? We've seen the first bit of Sky Pirates with the Dragon Bash, which is kind of exciting, and the new armor sets that are coming out. What do you think we're gonna see with these Sky Pirates?
We don't know where they came from, so they're probably gonna touch on that. We don't know who leads them, so they're probably gonna touch on that. So, I mean, there's a lot of directions that we know nothing about these Sky Pirates. We don't even know what their ship looks like. It might not even be in the sky. It could be, like, underwater. It could be a submarine for all we know.
That'd be crazy. I'm gonna go tinfoil hat here. guild airships. They're coming, and this is how we get them.
And you can use them in WvW. Just park it over a keep.
There we go. What do you guys think in chat? Being able to fly a guild airship around and park it over a ship. It's like a C-130 that you can just have orbiting one of your keeps.
There's a very mixed response.
I think Indo's AFK Dragon season. Oh, I like that there's a mixed response in chat. There's some people who really like it. Also, someone wants to launch Azura from it. I don't see why not. I think that's amazing. I think that Azura launchers. Those that say yes are PvEers. Maybe. I don't know. Would it add some level? Because now you add some verticality to the WvW maps. I think that could be interesting. What I would like to see is an airship that you can park over a place in ore and just have it defend a outpost in ore so that ore can stay mostly unlocked. Because it annoys me that I go to ore and like every single place is like capped. It is sad. Evie just lost his sound. Can you hear me at all, or?
No. Indo lost his sound.
Oh, Indo. Oh, that's Indo. Oh, it's like, aw.
We could try dropping him and then adding him back to the call.
Let's do that really quick. Oh, Dragon Season has an interesting theory. Are you back, Indo? Maybe. We'll see if he's still having issues. He was having some sound issues. He said in chat. Let's see. Oh. Let's see if I can fix Evie's picture really quick. Bam. Ninja. It's a gift. Except now I can't see chat at all. Oh, here we go. I got this.
What are you doing?
I'm fixing things. I'm fixing the internet. There we go. Fixed. Now I can see everything. Indo's still muted. So, moving really quick because oh, there you are. Indo's back. Welcome back.
Oh, yeah. Sorry about that.
No, not a problem. We always have technical difficulty. Well, not always, but
hopefully I didn't miss anything.
No. It was a bunch of PE. Pretty much most everyone in the in chat was like, "Oh, he's gone to get a drink because it's PVE." What are we talking about? PVE? Well, Relics of War is a PVE guild. That's what we do. We did mention that the idea of the Sky Pirates are going to probably... We are assuming that there are Sky Pirates coming in PvE, and they fly around in an airship, or possibly a submarine, which would make them water pirates, which is normal. Except underwater pirates. But anyways, I was thinking that maybe we would see guild airships coming in and possibly parking them over various places in the world and helping to defend it. For example, in World vs. World, parking a airship over a keep. Do you think that that would add to the game or take away from it?
Airships above a keep. It would be interesting. I don't know how they'd keep it balanced, I guess you could say. Because right now it's very difficult to get over the outer walls, but I mean, maybe just kind of throw it up there for design, so whenever a guild claims it, has the guild emblem plastered over the airship, you know, maybe something like that. But I don't know if it has any practical application as far as sieging or defending.
Maybe put really like cannons on it or something.
Yeah, maybe something like that.
Part of like keep upgrade for guilds. You can get your guild airship, and then it has its own siege weapons.
Yeah, maybe like, at least if you can't do anything up there, or maybe not seed driven, but maybe, I mean, if they really wanted to do it, I guess, have it as a guild upgrade, or the keep upgrade, and then you could put people up there so it gives you better vision. So say you could see, all the way to Northwest Tower, Northeast Tower from Garrison if you had an airship on Garrison, and if you had the airship over Bay, you could see the corner tower from Bay itself. So it could have some practical application depending on how they implement it. But I don't think unbalancing the current siege meta would be a good thing because it's already somewhat unbalanced. So if they just made it a scouting tool with a big fat guild emblem on it, could be a cool thing.
I would approve of like a giant guild. I would go into World versus World just to make sure Relics of War had a Zeppelin up at all times. Just because.
Yeah, I think it'd be cool.
Fun.
It would be cool.
Yeah. Well, cool. And one of the things that some people have been asking about with the addition of these Sky Pirates is, are we getting another fluff story arc, or are we going to actually start seeing some movement for like the core storylines that were left off in Guild Wars 1 and have not really been touched on in Guild Wars 2 at all? Evie, do you think we're just going to be seeing a lot more fluff and that expansions are when we'll see core storyline moving forward?
This could go one of two directions. Complete fluff, just like Fire and Frost. Well, Fire and Frost wasn't complete fluff because it somewhat linked to
content
Primordial.
was good. Yeah, that's not really at all.
South Sun was kind of fluff.
Yeah.
Or it could be linked to, say, Bubbles or Jorbag, and that's why these Sky Pirates are suddenly in Kryta, and they're just like, oh, hey, the Etherblade wants to, like, take over Lion's Arch so that we have a keep to deal with Bubbles or something like that. I don't know. It can go either way. It really can.
Yeah. That's a good point. It'll be interesting to see. I'm looking forward to it. One thing that we did discover on Twitter this week, as we're getting ready to sign out, we've been going for about an hour and 11 minutes, so it's about time. Is I was following John Peters, who's one of the primary writers for ArenaNet. He does a lot of the stories from the Living Story that we've seen, and he said he was pitching ArenaNet a new story, and then over the course of time, we discovered that this story, I mean, it wasn't me. It was like Richie Procopio from Massively.com and Gamebreaker TV and a few other people. We discovered that the core story is essentially a discussion. It's going to feature Dougal Keane at the center, and he is going to be joined by a sidekick, which is going to be a jive-talking Yeti, and we'll be fighting Mersat. So you should definitely check that out on John Peters' Twitter. It is a fantastic reveal. I'm looking forward to that storyline. There is some scuttlebutt that the jive-talking Yeti was vetoed, but I'm kind of looking forward to seeing what comes from that.
I want a jive-talking Yeti. Just I am. And yes, I said jetty on purpose.
Jetty. That would be a jive-talking Yeti is a jetty.
A jetty.
So.
Not confused with the Jetta.
Not to be confused with the Jetta. All right, well, that's going to be it for Relics of War this week. We had a lot on WvW, which was fantastic. I look forward to getting you back on Indo and talking to you more about WvW and maybe even getting you guys into PvE a little bit again, so you can do that. And Evie, once again, always good to have you on. And we are going to give you guys Indo back. Man, the PvEers, the WvWers really want you. Apparently they lost Dreaming Bay and your server's sad about that.
Dreaming Bay. Oh god.
Thanks for having me, guys. I truly appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for coming.
It's wonderful having you.
And we will
Absolutely.
We will be back on next week, same time, 6 o'clock p.m. Pacific. And have a good week, everyone.
Thanks, you too. Great show.
stay.